So here's why I left the New Age movement to become a follower of Jesus, and not something that I ever expected would happen. Now, I had been following New Age for over a decade. In fact, 2009, I shaved my head, moved into a yoga retreat, became a disciple of a guru, took a spiritual name, and was going to pledge my life forever to be a humble like Swami, Yogini, Karma Yogi, for the guru. That was my life plan. But God had very different plans for me. I even got a tattoo of it, which I'm in the process of getting removed. And I went on this journey of trying to discover myself and my life, especially spurred into this journey through my dad dying and trying to understand who I am, what's the deal with life and the world, and what's reality and all this kind of jazz. And it really threw me into Eastern religions and traditions and spirituality and trying to understand the world. And then I started to get into personal development and professional development, trainings and things like that. And because I also had a lot of health issues, I was very curious about different healing modalities, things like Reiki, things like crystal healing, so forth, so forth. It's a very long list, something that is for a longer video down the track when I do like my full testimony on YouTube. But I started dabbling into things, and then I got deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of the New Age, into things like plant medicine. I never did ayahuasca, but I did sapo, for example, and was very interested in channeling interdimensional entities and beings and all this sort of stuff. So it was a very curious world, and as I was going through all of this, I feel like I fell further and further into darkness. It didn't help me with certain areas of my life, in specific that I was trying to work on. The core thing was my dwindling finances, diving further and further into debt, ruining relationships and myself. And I got to this point, it was last year, and I'd tried, I'd given a lot of things to go to improve my life. Some things were definitely helpful in terms of knowledge and understanding things, the way the world works, and I don't regret my involvement in some things. Most things I, have renounced that now, thankfully, but, I learned some things, which have been practical. But as a general rule, it just did not improve my life and have that radical shift that I wanted to, or that I didn't know that I wanted. And then a friend introduced me to Jesus, right? I feel like I knew him before, because through the New Age world, you've got Christ consciousness, right? Jesus is this consciousness. He is an ascended master, and it is something that we can all access, but it can be had in harmony with all the other things, that whole coexist type thing. So I had this relationship that I thought that I had with Jesus. So when a friend invited me along to come to an alpha evening, which is it's like an outreach type thing where it introduces people to Jesus and the Bible, I was curious, because, I've always been interested in developing my spirituality. And so I went along, didn't really think any of it the first couple of sessions because, in the New Age world, this book completely debunked. Something I'm still coming to terms with, Old Testament stuff. I'm pretty flat on the New Testament. Love the gospel. The old one I'm still learning about, still unraveling stuff, because we learn a lot of things through that whole New Age world, right? So it was a big unraveling, didn't expect much out of it. But then one night, during the middle of this alpha evening, I felt this presence. And not the presence of like a spirit or anything like that. This was very different. I'm like, oh, this is Jesus. And it felt very different. And despite all the things that I know about him and the world and the Bible and all that sort of stuff, I couldn't help but deny this feeling and this presence. And I felt him take the weight of this load and this down spiral that I had been carrying and all these mistakes and debts. I felt him lift it off my shoulders. And I was like, hang on. He died for me. He did that so that we can take that off our shoulders. I don't have to carry this weight anymore, this debt, this darkness. I felt him pull me out of the darkness and into the light. Just like my favorite quote, from the Bible. It's like, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. That's what I felt started to happen. And then after that, it was really tricky because I'm like, what just happened? I tried to keep debunking it. My mind didn't match up with my heart, right? In my mind, I'm like, this doesn't really make sense because I don't believe in a lot of stuff in here. But in my heart, I felt him. I felt what changed for me, and I could not deny it at all. So it became this journey of like trying to match these things up. Eventually, I got there, but it was a very heavy journey. And the thing that really got me interested in it was seeing learning about the different kingdoms, God's kingdom, Satan's kingdom. And because I dived very headfirst into the New Age conspiracies and stuff like that, I was very aware of the way the world is run, right? But there was no offering, there was no promise of like, if you do this, you will be free of the darkness of the world. I thought by being very heavily in the New Age and exiting the Matrix and enlightenment and ascension and all these sorts of things, increase your frequency, I thought that was my ticket out of the darkness. Little did I know, I was still very heavily embedded in the Matrix. And I realized that the only way out of the Matrix is through Jesus, right? That's the only way out into the kingdom of heaven. So I was like, I'm going to be a Jesus guy. And so I became a Jesus guy. And I'm like really into him. I really love him. And he has really, really changed my life. I started closing all these doors. I threw out all my crystals that had any meaning. I've got some, which don't have meanings around crystals. It's just a memory from my mum. It's like, oh, that reminds me of my mum. But crystals that I bought that were related to, this specific benefit or this, that. I threw out spiritual books. I threw out Reiki books. I had to renounce things. I stopped using sage. I stopped working with certain practitioners. And I just, again, this is a longer video for another time. Just got rid of all of this stuff from the New Age in my life. And I became born again. I got baptized. Best thing I ever did, besides getting saved, besides being a father, getting saved, getting baptized. The baptism, that's a story for another time too, but that was incredible. I felt like there was another before and after moment, and I felt so clear. The biggest thing really was just this, I felt like my mind was pulled out of the darkness, out of the gutter for the first time, and I felt like I had a clear pathway forward of redemption. I didn't have to carry all this weight of all this, BS that I involved myself in my life. I was free. Now, what happened was things got really good, but then they got really bad, and they got worse, actually. So things got worse for me financially. Things got worse for me in certain relationships. Some areas were still good, but I just couldn't crack it. And then I had I feel like my ultimate rock bottom moment, right? And I thought I'd had many of them before, and I guess different varying degrees. But I had it, and I was like, I'm still doing things wrong. I was still in bondage, still in debt, still in bondage to my debtors, right? And it was, hitting this rock bottom and realizing that I was in bondage and I had to move forward in a completely different way and do my life differently, live it in alignment with God, not try and do things my way, and that I had to start walking in a different path. That is when things really started to change in my life. Now, that wasn't too long ago. It's October. That was a couple of months ago, right? And it's crazy because I became this influencer, right? 500,000 followers. And I thought that would solve all of my problems. Money, health, relationships. I felt like a lot of it was a money problem because then I was like, I'm going to do this career and I'm not going to be, answering to anyone, and I can just kind of be free. But I became a full-time content creator and I felt empty. And I was lost. And Jesus was the answer for me. I wish I started chasing him rather than that. But anyway, that's part of the journey, right? And so it brought me to this place, and I was in 21 days of fasting and prayer. And I realized that I need to start talking about him. I need to start making content about him. Doesn't have to be perfect. And the daily revival popped into my head. Wasn't really clear about what it would look like long-term or anything like that. I had some ideas short-term, but I just knew that I needed to start creating stuff daily, something daily, because one of the things that really helped me was watching other people's content and journey. I felt like a cuckoo person for wanting to follow Jesus, right? Because he is so scrutinized, even in the New Age movement that is all about Christ consciousness in many ways. I felt like a bit wacky following this guy, all right? I made peace with that. I got my understanding around it. And one of the things that really helped me was seeing other people talk about their journey, content creators, celebrities, because there was no one in my immediate life. Like everyone was like, it's still very heavily in the New Age. Still some of my closest friends are like super woo-woo, right? I got no problem with being spiritual and everything like that, but I didn't realize how dark so much of this New Age stuff was. The wolf in sheep's clothing, the devil masquerading as personal growth and enlightenment. And I just didn't really have anyone that I feel like I could talk to that had that relation. I had one friend that started the journey with me, and I just didn't really feel like I could talk to anyone about it. So all this content started to help re-season my algorithm. And now I see like a lot of probably like 50-50 Christian stuff, bit of crunchy stuff, bit of anti-agenda stuff, a bit of entrepreneur, but I started to season areas of my life and fill it more with godly things. And I hope that by sharing things through the Daily Revival that I can be an inspiration for people on their journey, coming to Christ, discovering who he is, building a relationship with him and how he can change their life. My mind was quiet for the first time in my entire life, 30-something years. The lust that I'd been battling with, see you later, alligator. The video game addiction that I had for almost 30 years, gone, I didn't play video games for almost a year, longest time in my whole life, I think, except when I was at that ashram. He just changed my life so much. And now I'm entering this era where I'm, I didn't feel like I was a good steward of money, even though I was starting to make a lot. But I feel like now that with my new habits around money and the way I'm doing things, that I will be a good steward. He will give me all that is desired and provided. So that's part of it. Nervous system, regulation, being on the front foot, being a warrior for Jesus, outspoken, not being fearful of what people think or the comment section. I'm ready to be a part of this revival. I used to think there was nothing more higher of honor than regenerating the soil, right? Bringing people to health. I still believe that is up there, but to me, the most important thing in my life is repenting, coming to Jesus, drawing closer to him, and inspiring and supporting others to do the same. So, I was considering quitting everything and just becoming a full-time ministry evangelist person, but I've got my other account, which I'm starting to build again after, several months of not knowing where to go with it. I want to keep my, I guess we could call this my ministry or just, sharing my journey, and then keeping that very separate because, I don't not everyone's into Jesus, and I respect that. I was there looking from the out in. It's a pretty weird world, right? It's a little bit delulu, right? From the in out, I'm like, come on, guys, what's going on? Like, come on, say yes, hallelujah, right? So I just wanted to start a different channel where I could start talking about things Jesus every day for people that are just hungry for him, or they're hungry for change, or they want to learn new things, or they want an inspiration, whether you're new, you're fresh, you haven't been saved, or maybe you're lukewarm, as they say, or you've kind of gotten stuck in the ways of the world, you're stuck in sin, you've lost that spark. I want to reignite that revival, right? So that's what we're here doing. And I don't know how this is going to evolve. This is my 20-something time of shooting this video. I feel like this is a pretty good take. But I just wanted to share the context and welcome of what is the Daily Revival. And for 365 days, starting today, the 27th of October, we will be posting a video a day on here, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and I will be sharing things along my way on the journey. We'll see what goes, see what happens. If I can inspire one person to get saved somehow, I don't know how it would happen. Hopefully it does. But if I can inspire one person or one person to come back to Jesus, then it's worth it. Or at least get really good and comfortable with talking in front of the camera about Jesus. Because this is the first time properly that I've really shared my journey. Even my close friends don't really know how deeply, I am on this journey. But we're here together. The question, hypothesis thing that I'm planting is, what would happen if we centered our life around Jesus every single day for a year? Just a year. You can go back to your normal life after, if you like. You probably won't want to, but just a year, one day at a time. Read this thing. This is great. This is great. Gospel. Love the gospel. Goodness me. Pray every day. Pray, read the word, and live as Christ lived, or aim towards it. Repent daily. Fill things that are godly in our life. Create godly relationships, etc. That's what the Daily Revival is about. So welcome, hit subscribe, and let's walk the journey together. Appreciate you. God bless.